I am going to take us out of Dumbo for a few minutes to Jerusalem, Israel. It's actually one of New York's sister cities, and we have a lot in common. For one thing, we're both teeming with diversity, and we attract a lot of immigrants and visitors from all over the world. But one of the major differences is that in Jerusalem, these various populations are fighting over the very land that they share, and for a democratic future that, frankly, hangs in the balance. This battle has far-reaching and global implications, but it's actually not the one that you might expect. The conflict in Jerusalem that we normally hear about is between Arab citizens of Israel, who live mainly in this eastern part and make up about 40% of the population, and the Jewish citizens of Israel, who live mostly in West Jerusalem and make up the rest. They both lay historic claim to the land, as we know, but again, this is not the battle I'm talking about today. What I'm talking about is more of a culture war happening mostly in West Jerusalem among a small population of the ultra-Orthodox Jewish population and the majority moderate population, down to even just full-on secular folks. It's not to say that this is just a battle among Jews. It's really a battle among an extreme element of the ultra-religious and everyone else who wants the city to flourish outside of religious control. The ultra-Orthodox population is growing rapidly in number and in power, and they have a vision for Jerusalem. In their vision for the future, a strict religious lifestyle would be imposed by the leadership over the entire population. And this is actually already playing out in a lot of circumstances, particularly in terms of the ultra-Orthodox treatment towards women. So all over Jerusalem, in secular and in Orthodox areas, images of women are disappearing from public view. You can hardly see any images of women in advertisements. And even more dramatically, gender segregation is being enforced in certain areas, particularly on some public buses that run through ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods, where women are being forced, sometimes violently, to sit in the back of the bus. So because of extreme policies like these, and also a ongoing economic downturn, the young, moderate working population has been fleeing Jerusalem by the tens of thousands. Fortunately, in my view, a new wave of young artists and activists have made a commitment to stay in Jerusalem and fight back. And their vision for the future of the city is different from the ultra-Orthodox. Their vision is one in which Jerusalem is a thriving, democratic, religiously tolerant, economically viable, really a capital city for all Israelis. And they're staying against great odds. I mean, in addition to this kind of growing wave of religious fundamentalism, like here, housing prices are skyrocketing and good jobs are hard to come by. So why do they stay? For one thing, they love their city, and I think a lot of us can relate to that. And a lot of them have long family histories in the area. One guy told me about how his great-great-grandfather came to Jerusalem from Persia riding a camel. But the thing that they really share, and the kind of common thread that I heard again and again, is that they think that what happens in Jerusalem ultimately affects the whole rest of the country. And they're not ready to give up on a democratic future. They really want to stay and fight and build the kind of city that they can believe in. I met some of these young activists when I was at a conference called ROI in Israel. It's a gathering of young innovators from all over the world. And I was really moved by their stories. I mean, as an American woman, I was impressed by their commitment to democracy and diversity. And as a storyteller, I was intrigued. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to start to share their struggles and their accomplishments. So I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I began research for a new documentary film called Battle for Jerusalem on these very topics. And as I heard more stories and I met more of these folks and started to learn about what was going on, I realized that the questions being asked in Jerusalem could actually apply to cities all over the world. How do you create a new culture in an aging city? How do you reclaim public space so that it's actually available to all of the public? How do you make room in your city for diversity when that very same diversity might cause tension among the residents? In essence, how do you fight a culture war whose goal is to achieve cultural peace? In Jerusalem, the answer has something to do with recognizing that while it's a place of massive challenges, it's also one of infinite possibilities. In fact, I think that the very same things that make it challenging could also help it flourish. Now, given that we're talking about a culture war, you may not be surprised to hear that arts are being used as a major weapon in the arsenal of some of these young activists. They're trying to fight a constructive battle versus a destructive one. Literally, they're trying to use arts and culture to construct the type of city that they want to live in. I met a lot of these folks, and I'm going to introduce you to a couple of them. One is an artist called Matan, this guy. He lives in a neighborhood called Musrara, which is a really interesting and often underlooked neighborhood that falls in between secular Jewish, Arab, and ultra-Orthodox areas. And these various populations cross through the streets every day, but they come from totally different worlds, and they have no reason really to interact with each other. So Matan helped form an arts collective that's basically turning Musrara into an evolving outdoor art gallery. They've taken over billboards and put up sculptures and weatherproof frames with rotating art in hopes that people will walk by, stop, take a look, and maybe even interact with each other. In addition to just putting up art, the collective works on civic improvement projects with other neighborhood residents. And one of the big ones they did had to do with honoring Israel's Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party started in Musrara in the 60s to combat racism and discrimination against Middle Eastern Jews by their European-descended counterparts. And, you know, they actually did some really important social justice work, but they've never been formally recognized. So the response of Matan and his collective was to basically create very elaborate ceramic street signs in Hebrew, English, and Arabic with names like Black Panther's Way and They're Not Nice Alley. They embedded these in street corners in concrete, you know, all without official city sanctions, of course, and they were literally taking over the streets. They're creating the kind of neighborhood that they want to live in. Another example happened over in Beit Shemesh, which is a Jerusalem suburb where ultra-Orthodox and secular residents have really been clashing in recent times. And one of the kind of very big results of this was harassment towards women. An extreme case is that this girl, Nama Margulies, is 8 years old. She was on her way to school. She's a modern Orthodox girl. She was wearing basically what she's wearing in the picture, long sleeves, a long skirt, when she was spat on and called a whore by ultra-religious men who claimed that she was immodestly dressed. This caused an outcry all over the country, but in Beit Shemesh, in their own neighborhood, there was a really interesting response. 250 women from across the religious spectrum, socioeconomic status, age groups, did a flash mob in the town square to the sounds of Queen's Don't Stop Me Now. There's a YouTube video of this that's received almost 200,000 views, and the mayor of Beit Shemesh has received international pressure to end any form of gender discrimination in the town. So there are dozens of examples like these, and I think it's important to note that in each case and in the many others like them, the actions are peaceful and positive, and they try to be inclusive of diverse community members. Again, it's about fighting a constructive battle versus a destructive one. You know, everyone's always trying to fix Jerusalem, the United States, the United Nations, but the people in these examples and the many other activists that I met really feel like they need to find their own internal solutions to their problems. They think that the future of coexistence in their city and their country, and perhaps the whole world, depends on it and depends on them. I thought that maybe a film alone wasn't enough to convey the complexity of the situation and you know, tell the many amazing stories that there are to be told. So I'm still making the film. It's now focusing on the women's rights issues I've been talking about, and a really inspiring modern Orthodox city councilwoman named Rachel Azaria, who is fighting against the gender discrimination policies of her ultra-Orthodox counterparts on city council. But I've also expanded the project to include a multi-platform journey to Jerusalem called Jerusalem Unfiltered. And the idea of this website and mobile app is they can show us the city basically through a series of thematic tours and interactive film profiles of just the type of people that I've been talking about today. My hope is that visitors to the site and the mobile app can begin to untangle Jerusalem's complexities in the same way I have, by basically interacting with dozens of local people who are trying to reimagine the city through a progressive lens. And really the goal is to give visitors some sort of direct engagement, some sort of interaction, albeit virtual, with these folks in Jerusalem without the sort of typical filter of the news media. These guys in Jerusalem are taking their values and literally remaking their divided city into something new. So one thing I learned from them is that we can take physical steps to change our realities. Like, small actions can actually lead to becoming empowered in a disempowering environment. Painting a wall, doing a dance, taking over a street sign. It's all about taking things that could cause friction and instead using them as a mechanism to bring people together. Ido Levit, he's a cultural events promoter in Jerusalem and a lifelong Jerusalemite. He's one of these folks that stayed. And he put this whole thing in a really beautiful way, this concept. He basically said that right now, all these different populations in Jerusalem and the intersection of them is mainly causing suffering and difficulty. But he feels that at the moment this crazy intersection turns into a platform for creation and collaboration, Jerusalem could become the most exciting city in the world. So with this attitude in mind, I invite you to look around your own neighborhood. Think about what space that you might like to shift or reclaim, how you'd like to change things, how you might like to create opportunity for collaboration among neighbors. And now, take inspiration from these activists in Jerusalem, as I have, and ask yourself if there's a constructive battle that you can fight, or even just some constructive mischief that you can cause. Think about what you can change in your space to make it look more like the place you want to live in. Like the artists in Musrara or the dancers in Beit Shemesh, I invite you to look around your neighborhood and find opportunities to turn friction into creative possibility.